Phil?
Have to unmute yourself, Phil.
Okay, now you should be able to.
There we go. All right. Thank you.
Welcome, Phil.
Hey, thanks for having me. All right. Phillip, alcoholic. Welcome. Thanks for having me here. Address the elephant in the room. Obviously, I'm not the Phil C from Kingsport, but big shout out and thanks to Phil C from Kingsport for the invite. Kind of got to know him over the pandemic via Zoom and whatnot. It's been a real joy. Interesting fact, also a Phil C in the Memphis area. So I think between Middle, East, West Tennessee, there is a Phil C that can carry the message if so needed. So don't worry about that. All right. Let's see, sober since January 15th, 2005. And I got sober when I was 23. So I got sober, relatively young. And I've been sober 17 years now. I've got a sponsor. His name's Barkley. He was carrying a message, as we often do, into a treatment facility when I was in treatment. And he has been my sponsor for the duration of my sobriety, which I know is not everybody's story, but it's worked really well for me. And it has been really cool for both of us, I think, to see each other grow through this whole process. And I've got a home group. It's the page 112 group. We meet Wednesday nights, 6 p.m. Central. We do have an online component. So if you're free some Wednesday evening and want to check us out online, we'll be there doing what we do and doing what you all do, which hopefully is carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. So there you go. And I also sponsor people because that's what we're supposed to do, I believe, right? That like the work of AA is not me working through the steps. It's actually me taking other people through the steps, which of course turns out to be the biggest joy in our lives. But we'll get to that. I'm here tonight because I love drinking. Like I absolutely love drinking. And I think I came to AA expecting people to warn me that, alcohol was the devil or this or that, and maybe make me feel bad for drinking the way that I wanted to. But I'm grateful to say that that's not it, right? It's like we all love drinking so much that we traded pretty much everything in our lives for it. If I could drink successfully, maybe I would, but I know that I cannot, and I'm grateful to continue to go to meetings and to continue to work with people so that I can bring into my mind with sufficient force the humiliation of my last drinking bouts, and I had quite a few bouts of drinking. I was a daily drinker from high school through college. Let's see. The very first drink I had, I was 12 years old, and it was a magical day, as it was for so many of us. I was at a barbecue with my parents, and I'm originally from Chicago, had moved back down to had moved to Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I live now, and was taken back up to Chicago for a 4th of July barbecue, and all my friends were up there, and they were making fun of me because I'd picked up a sweet new accent, being 12 and highly impressionable, and I just remember feeling very isolated and alone and different. And of course, I looked around and saw what the grown-ups were doing. They were drinking those red cups, and so I got a red cup of strawberry margarita, and my whole life changed that day, literally, right? The entire trajectory of my life changed that day. And I slurped down a big cup of that, and all of a sudden I was cool, and I, was able to not care what people thought about me, which was huge, right? Because my whole life up to that point had been spent worried about what other people were thinking about me, other people's judgments and stuff, and letting those drive, who I thought I was, right? I think people pleasing runs deep with some of us, and that certainly was the case for me. So I slurped down that strawberry margarita and took off, warp speed, and knew that I had found this secret to life. I grew up an only child. I had a half sister, but she was out of the house well before I was even born, and so I just kind of was the golden child, the only child. And so when I would go to my friends' houses on the weekends after that first experience, I knew the good manners to make the parents like me. And then as soon as they were asleep, the questions, do they have a liquor cabinet? What's in it? What are we doing tonight? And I was always, I made it my mission to get drunk. At 15 years old, 3 years later, a very magical thing happened, which is I got my hardship driver's license because I went to a high school where there was no bus. And my friend had gone up to Michigan and found an ID of a 27-year-old man and brought that ID back down. And I cut out his picture and put in my little 15-year-old face, just smiling and happy. And I had my first fake ID and I was able to drive. And I grew up, I'm in East Nashville, which if you're not familiar, East Nashville is kind of hip, right? It's kind of a hip place to be. But when I was growing up here, it was not hip. It was kind of, it was a little sketchy. And the only nice thing about that was that the liquor store didn't really care that I was clearly underage. I had an ID and they kind of pat me on the head and let me get my stuff and roll out. So from 15 years old and on, I was drinking and I was driving, and I'm not proud of that at all. That's just, those were the facts of life, And I drink, as the book says, because I like the effect produced by alcohol. That's the deal for me, right? I am very grateful that I didn't come into the rooms with any significant trauma. My parents loved me to death. I really couldn't complain or point at things about why I drank the way I drank, other than just I liked the effect. I just liked that feeling so much. And I remember, when it was clear that I had a drinking problem, people would ask me why I drank the way I did, and had no real excuse or real reason other than I like to party. And as I came to find out later, once in a while an alcoholic may tell the truth, and truth is we don't really have any more reason than they do. We just drink because that's what we do. So I had that fake ID, and in high school, it put me exactly where I wanted to be in life, which was at the center of the party. Right. So if you wanted to party, you had to come see me, and I wanted to be a mover and a shaker. And so that's what I did. So I helped all my friends get booze, and every weekend we were drinking. And by senior year, that turned into mornings before school as well. I was dabbling into anything else, any other kind of outside issues I could get my hands on. I was open to it all, and down for it all. And I had a strong entrepreneurial spirit. And so, besides just the booze, which I would help my friends with, I started a small business out of the trunk of my car in high school with some friends, again, helping people, just getting like we were. If you want to be like us, you come and do what we do, and I can help you with that by giving you the supplies to do so. And that was it. I had a great high school experience. A lot of my friends in the rooms didn't like high school because sometimes we don't fit in, or we feel so different, or we're isolated. Maybe we haven't found the golden key to life yet, and aren't drinking the way that we start drinking later in life. But high school was just fine by me. And I had a scholarship. I was always able to keep my grades up, which was a great smoke screen, right? As long as you can keep your grades up and get away with a lot in life. Pro tip. And that's what I did. And just as I was about to go away to college with a scholarship to a school up in Chicago, I had a job every weekend. I would close down a photo developing shop. And a lot of you folks probably know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Back in the day, we took pictures on a camera. We had to take the little rolls of film, take them somewhere. And then people like me, would stick them in the machine and ask you if you want singles or doubles. And the place I worked was right over by Opryland Hotel. And so it was a tourist trap, no doubt about it. And we sold all kinds of souvenir spoons, thimbles, and a lot of really cool Jack Daniels merchandise. And so I would have my friends come over on the weekend, and we would test out all those shot glasses I had in the store and line them up, and everybody would go to town. And we'd basically throw a party every weekend. And we had a dark room in the back where we'd participate in smoking some other stuff. And one weekend, a buddy of mine brought his little brother with, and the little brother was just out wandering the store while we were 18 years old. It's not like we were grown-ups at the time, but we thought we were. And we were in the back doing our thing, partying, and the strip mall security drives by and just sees a child wandering around a store, which is weird in retrospect. That was our bad. Shouldn't have done that. And comes, opens the door and knocks on the dark room door, and everybody's freaking out. Hey, shh, be quiet. Everybody be cool. And the cop's like, hey, I can hear you in there. Okay. And so, so we're busted. We know we're busted. We open the door, the smoke billows out, all the Jack Daniels souvenir glasses are lined up. And we had been busted officially. And I did what I would do many times in the coming years, which was take a very real situation, getting fired for being drunk on the job. And I rationalized why it didn't matter. I was really good at that, right? Something that to most normal people or to anybody else looking says, that's a big flag. That's a major red flag. And, as an alcoholic, I just thought, I didn't really want this job. This wasn't for, I should be doing something cooler or better anyway. I'm going away to college anyway. This doesn't matter. And kind of moving the goalpost on myself before I could start feeling bad about where my drinking was taking me. So just before I went to college, I did a stint in outpatient. The cops told my parents, if I'm drinking on the job, that's definitely an issue and something to look out for. So did a stint in outpatient and wasn't interested in getting sober. I was 18 years old, about to head off to college. But I did hear some very interesting things, right? About if once I begin to drink, if I have little control over the amount I take, I might be an alcoholic, if I can't control and enjoy it, sometimes maybe I could control it, but I couldn't enjoy it. And if I was going to enjoy it, I definitely wasn't trying to control it. Some of those seeds were planted early on and I thought, that's cool. I'm going to college and I'm going to do what college kids do. And so I got to college and that first semester out of the house promptly drank away my scholarship, like the moment that I was given that freedom, just quit doing everything I was supposed to do and drank the way that I wanted to drink, which was every day. And I remember being around my peers who thought, wow, this guy drinks a lot, and they'd hang with me for 1 or 2 days. And then maybe by that third or fourth consecutive day, normal people or hard drinkers are looking for a day off. They're looking for a break, but not us. We're saying line it up again, and morning Phillip, way different than evening Phillip. Like morning Phillip, I may wake up and think, I feel horrible. I'm not doing that again. But as the sun starts to set and nighttime, evening Phillip comes out, all of a sudden, oh man, it wasn't that bad. Yeah, I felt a little rough, but nothing a little whiskey won't help now. And so I again drank away that scholarship and that opportunity. And once again, did the thing, right? Once again said, well, I didn't really want to go to school here. I'm a musician. I don't, what am I doing up here? It's too cold. I was in Chicago. I was like, it's cold. I don't even like it here. I'm going to just drink, we come up with all these excuses that we're running our lives into the ground. And I'd gotten real good at it. And that's what I did. And so I came back to Nashville, tail between my legs, and I didn't want to go back to college, but my mom said it would mean a lot to her if I did. And so I went back and I tell you what I was good at in college, which was starting out with 15 hours, maybe 5 classes, and then cutting down to 12, then down to 9, just dropping classes throughout the semester until I'm just barely in school every semester. And I did that for a while. I had a phenomenal drinking job. Which was that I parked other people's cars as a valet, which probably not the smartest thing you could do. The hours were a great fit though, because I could sleep until 3 or 4 p.m., be at work at 5 p.m., work a shift, and then, by 11 p.m., get off with a pocket full of cash and head to the bar and start drinking the way I wanted to drink and drink till the sun came up, go to bed and do it again. And that was my life for quite some time. And I was making money. That small business I'd started out of the trunk of my car with my friend. I'd gone away to college and come back, and it was flourishing. So there was just a lot more everything to be had. A lot more everything. And I should have taken note that things weren't heading in the right direction. There were a lot of very sketchy people hanging around my friend. When I would go to his house, instead of it just being the fun party time like it used to be, now everybody had a gun, and there was an AK leaned up in the corner, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess this is normal now. And just that weird way that our alcoholic life becomes our normal one, right? And all of a sudden, it doesn't happen overnight, but through a series of small steps, we get down this path where all of a sudden I don't recognize who I am or this life I'm living, but I'm here and it must be where I'm supposed to be. I was drinking every day, again, making good money, and had the delusion that if I could get enough really top-notch, top-shelf bourbon, get my hands on all the other party favors that I wanted, if I could just get all that stuff, that I'd be happy. That I'd finally be happy. I could drink the way I wanted to drink, party the way I wanted to party. And of course, what happens? We get our hands on all these things and I'm not happy, and in fact, I'm miserable. I'm way more miserable than I was before, because I realized that, I'd gotten the golden ring, I got the thing, and, gotten the lifestyle that I thought I wanted. And I wasn't any happier than I had been. And again, if anything, I was a lot more depressed. And I'm a naturally kind of happy, optimistic kind of guy. Try not to let things get me down too much. But that's when the, kind of the crazy depressive thoughts start to creep in, that if this is all life has to offer, I don't know if I want to stick around for it, that kind of stuff. Which, of course, in retrospect is crazy to think about, but it takes a lot of alcoholics, it takes a lot of sober and drunk and sober alcoholics. If we're not careful, if we're not being open with our friends and our the people close to us that we trust about how we're really doing. And I had been seeing a therapist, and I had been robbed numerous times because, again, I was in the business of helping other people acquire things that they could not acquire otherwise, right, through legal means, right? So I was selling them stuff to make them feel funny, and I wasn't that great at it, guys, because I don't have that like tough-nosed demeanor that you need to really be good at that sort of thing. That wasn't me. So when I would walk into the party with a backpack full of stuff, shooting around, I think the real tough guys saw me and immediately thought, oh, okay, there's the mark for tonight, and so I got beaten up and shot at and all these things over the course of a few years, enough to make me realize that I wasn't cut out for that life. But I didn't know that, right? And all of the stuff that I would sell to people was never really mine. I got it from somebody behind the curtain, from the actual tough guy. And I had been robbed enough times that I think he thought something fishy was going on. And so there was a very stern warning that, like, if this happens again, there's going to be real consequences to me, bodily harm sort of thing. So that's not a fun place to be either, and so I came home one night from a long night of drinking, and I started going through my stuff, and it had happened again, everybody. I had been robbed once again, robbed blind of all the money and all the stuff, right? It was all gone. And I just started freaking out, because I thought, this is it. I'm going to get messed up bad. And so I started pacing around the room, right? My mind is racing frantically. And I'd like to say, that I just made a decision that, hey, this is enough. It's time to get sober, live a sober life, turn my will and my life over to God. But no, I was freaking out. I did say the simplest alcoholic prayer that I think opens the door for so many of us, which is, God, help me, God, help me. I don't know what to do. And so I did what probably most badass drug dealers do. I called my parents. Yeah, I called my parents and said, guys, this might come as a big surprise to you, but I think I have a problem with alcohol. And they said, yes, you definitely do. That's exactly what we've been trying to tell you for like 3 years. You definitely have a problem. There's no question about it. You should get help. We think that we're fooling everybody when we're drinking the way we are, right? We don't think that people know that our life is in shambles the way it is. And so I'm so grateful that the people that loved me recognized what was going on and said, yeah, you do have a problem. Do you want to do something about it? And so I said, yeah, what can we do? And there was a treatment center that had been recommended to us. They didn't take insurance. It was it was kind of very bare bones spiritual retreat type of thing, where basically we're given a big book of 12 and 12 and get to working. And yeah, it wasn't wouldn't open up until Monday for a bed for me. So I had the weekend. My lease was going to expire over the course of my time in treatment. So I had to move out that weekend. And so I'm cleaning out my stuff. I get my t-shirts, get my socks, and then boom, all of the money and the substance that I had hidden from myself in a blackout, because that's what I did. I blacked out every night, right? I don't know if a lot of you guys might have done that, but pretty much every night I would lose 4 to 6 hours of my life and have to have people tell me what had happened. Had to have it pieced back together for me every morning. And that's exactly what had happened. So the wheels start turning. I'm thinking, how do I get out of this? Clearly, if rehab is in the picture, I have overreacted, because once we start thinking about that, right? Like I didn't like my life, but I was terrified of what a different life might be. I was terrified by what the alternative might be. And thankfully, the wheels, the gears were in motion to an extent that I couldn't back out. And so I kind of begrudgingly went to treatment on Monday. And kind of with that chip on my shoulder of like, you guys are all messed up. I made one silly mistake. I hit all my stuff and now I'm here, and again, in our deepest place of knowing, by the time we get to a meeting, typically we have an idea that we don't drink like normal people, that there is a significant problem, like a real problem that we have. And although I started treatment very, kind of guarded and calloused, I heard some key things early on, which is there's going to be a whole lot of differences here. Listen for the similarities, and all the things that we hear in early sobriety that hold true throughout the course of my entire sobriety. And so again, a gentleman came through carrying the message with his sponsor, and those two men are still in my life today. And and I got out of treatment. I was 30 days sober, and I knew what they said. They said, don't go back to the bars, don't go back to hanging out with your old friends. But I had spent a lot of time in the bars, gang, and I was really, really good at darts and pool, right? Like these bar games, right? And I can't just give up all that institutional knowledge and all that experience. So literally the next night I'm at the bar, like just shooting pool and not drinking, and I did that for a few weeks, just not drinking, it's people's birthday. That's cool. I'm not drinking. And I was going to some meetings and trying to do that too. But every night, a lot of the nights I was still out in it. And that didn't lead me to drink. But one evening, it was a friend's birthday. They were drinking. And a friend told me, hey, just have a shot of beer. And for some reason, his suggestion that I take a shot of beer rubbed me entirely the wrong, in my head, the ego is like, man, I used to buy this kid, peach schnapps in Boone's Farm. And I taught this kid how to drink, and he's telling me to take a shot of beer. The nerve. And so I didn't do that, but out in the parking lot, they were participating in some other substances. And I am a huge proponent of, fan of, and adherent to the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I don't get into a lot of the other outside issues. The only thing that matters is that we drank the way that we drank. And that's what, we confine our discussion to in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. But this one thing I do mention because it's integral to my story. They were doing nitrous oxide, which is laughing gas. It's what the dentist gives you. Lasts 30 to 60 seconds. And I did one, and I remember like Jim mixing the whiskey with the milk, like vaguely sensing I wasn't being too smart, right? Like I did it, and I was like, oh, that's not a relapse, right? I'm in AA, right? And like, there's no reason to tell my sponsor. He probably won't understand anyway. He won't know what it is. It's these hip kids things. But it was like the telltale heart beaten, Edgar Allan Poe, that I knew I had this secret. And so a few weeks later, I was talking to my sponsor, and I told him, yeah, I found a home group. I'm getting involved with Tiki Paw. I did a Whip It. I'm chairing meetings. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm chairing meetings. Isn't that cool? Can you believe they let me? And he said, no, the other thing. And I said, oh, you mean the Whip It? He's like, yeah, tell me more about that. And I said, well, it's this thing. It only lasts, 30 to 60 seconds. I mean, that's not a relapse, right? Do you think? And I'll never forget, he told me, I can't make that decision for you, but I trust that you'll do the right thing. And that floored me. Like, how did he know I would do the right thing? I clearly didn't know what the right thing to do was, or else I wouldn't have hidden it. But probably, again, deep down, I probably did know that wasn't it. So even though this is Alcoholics Anonymous, that's how I bumped my sobriety date, the longest 90 days of my life, right? Because I don't think that for me personally, I couldn't, properly sponsor people and tell the truth about who I am and about the foundation of my recovery if I had this thing in the back of my mind that was, anytime life got hard, it's like, yeah, but I mean, I already did this one thing, so what's the big deal, and of course, now 17 years later, those 90 days are worth every moment to trade that in, because I have the firm knowledge and understanding that like my sobriety is on built on bedrock, right? And there's sand in the mortar. So right about a year sober, I was up in New York City with some friends and writing some music, and thought, hey, this is cool. And my AA birthday is right next to my belly button birthday. And I was up there with a couple friends not in recovery, friends that I'd known for a long, long time. And they said, hey man, let's write some music. Let's do it. And we did the deal and it was great. And then it went so well. I said, hey guys, it's my real birthday. I'm thinking about having a beer. And one of my friends said, what'd you say? And I was like, I'm thinking about having a beer. And he said, you should be embarrassed. And my other friend, again, both these guys I used to party with, my other friend said, yeah, man, you should be ashamed of yourself. I was like, no, I was just kidding. And they're like, no, you were serious and you should be ashamed of yourself. And those are the, two of the only friends that I have from back in the day of drinking, right? Those are probably the only two people in my world at that time that would have said, you should be embarrassed about having, about throwing away your sobriety, right? The other 99% of people that I was hanging with back in the day would have said, oh, wow, yeah, man, absolutely. A whole year, or it's your birthday or whatever, because they don't really care about us. I mean, they're few and far between are the people that really care about me in my drinking days. So, when people ask me if I have to give up all the friends that I had when I got sober, like, no, I don't have to, but most of them didn't want to hang out with a sober me. And the ones that did, were honest with me about being, haphazard with my sobriety. And so I'm grateful for that. And both those guys were in my wedding, and I'm grateful for that. That was right out of a year sober. And I had indeed gotten involved in a home group, gotten involved in service committees, and I'm still involved in that stuff. I have never not had an AA service commitment in the duration of my sobriety. And I don't say that bragging. I'm just saying, like, I have not made a choice to get out of the boat yet. And so my sponsor talks about burning his life down at 10 years when he got, wrapped up in his career. And I've got friends that at 7 or at 15 or, there's these magic years. And I don't think it has to be that way. I think if we just stay in the boat and keep doing, what we have been taught to do, that life just keeps getting better and better. As I said, I had gotten a home group at that point, had gotten involved in TICIPAW, the Tennessee Conference of Young People in Alcoholics Anonymous, which is coming up in February here in Nashville, and hosted that. And that was a cool experience. And then we hosted CIRCIPAW, the Southeast Regional Conference of Young People in Alcoholics Anonymous. Then we started bidding for ICIPAW, which is the International Conference. And I bid for ICIPAW for 7 years. For 7 years, we went to these conferences and said, hey, you guys should let us have them in Nashville, and what happened all 7 years? Wasn't thirsty once, didn't get thirsty once, right? And then finally in 2016, they let us host it. And so I got to chair the host committee of ICIPAW in Nashville in 2016. And then I've been on the advisory council, the kind of the board that oversees it now for the past 7 years, ever since 6 years. And I get to chair that advisory council. And that's a cool experience, right? And my experience is like, I've just stayed busy and I haven't had time to get thirsty. I met a young lady when I was about a year and a half, 2 years sober. She was 3 years sober, which seemed like forever. And we both had a lot of growing up to do. Again, that was 15 years ago, 16 years ago, something like that. And she as well has been sober for the duration of that. And I'm not saying that's how everybody's got to do it. You don't have to find a sober partner by any means, but my experience is I did, and it's, it has worked out well for us. And she she had served on a lot of the things that we serve on. She also caught the general service bug. And I have done some rounds in general service myself on various standing committees and on, chairing as GSR and yada, yada, yada. But my wife is serving as our current delegate. So I got to go up to New York with her last last April, and kind of see that conference process take place. And how cool is that, right? If you're in, if you stay sober a little while and we just kind of stick with it, you realize that it's not just me and my home group. We're part of this worldwide fellowship that's changing lives. And nobody can do the work of AA for us. We have to do it for ourselves, and so she's always had a service commitment as well, and it's been a really cool, both of us spend a lot of time doing AA stuff. And I don't know that, that if we were with different people, if that would work, if that would fly in a normal relationship. And my experience is that, like, when I just focus on carrying the message and doing the work of AA, like, all the other areas of my life just kind of fall into place. I was afraid that I had to be out making it happen on the career front, or making it happen on the finding a person, finding a life partner front. And really, I just said yes to a couple service commitments and got on some service committees and started meeting people, and all that stuff just happened. We've got two beautiful kids that are 5 and 7. So we're raising a family, and I did go back to college. My parents didn't go to college, and it meant a lot to them. And at first I was like, okay, I'll do it for you, because I was afraid of being the old guy in the class. I was afraid of being the 25-year-old around the 19-year-olds, right? Which sounds ridiculous now that I'm 40. And like, that time was going to pass one way or another, so I'm so grateful that I spent it doing something that meant something to me, and that made my parents proud as well. That is part of practicing these principles in all of my affairs, that I believe is an extension of our 12-step work. And when I met my wife, she and I, again, we hit it off, and ups and downs, had a lot of growing to do. A few years into our relationship, my older sister, who, as I mentioned, I didn't really grow up with, but I drank a lot with, she called my dad and said, hey, I'm ready to get sober, I think. And she lived up in Chicago. And so my dad and I hopped on a plane, went up to get her. She was living on a commune, a hippie farm. And we rolled up to the commune, and, we called the guy, call the compound, and the guy answers, and he tells my dad, like, I don't know if he thinks my dad is the police or what, but he says, you can't come in, just send the boy. And at that point, that was me. I was the boy. And so my dad's like, is this okay? This feels a little weird. And I was like, yeah, I've been in sketchier areas, probably, Dad. It's okay. So I go in, and my sister had done the thing that we do so often, right? I got in there. She's like, oh yeah, I changed my mind. I don't really want to go. I'm like, we just came all the way up from Nashville. We got a bed for you in a treatment center. So she finally get her on the plane, drunk as a skunk, which is how she had to stay, because she would go into withdrawals. She was deathly afraid of DTs, because she'd been drinking, she went everywhere with a backpack and a handle of vodka in it. And over the course of the weekend, similar situation, she couldn't get into a treatment facility until the following Monday. And over the course of the weekend, she decided that the geographical cure was all she needed. And so my dad is significantly older than I am. He's 40 years older than I am. And my mom called and said, hey, your dad's, blood pressure is through the roof. I'm afraid he's going to stroke out. Is there anything you can do? And I don't recommend trying to 12-step or, whatever family members by any means. My experience was, I was grateful to grab at the time, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and tell my mom, yeah, you guys go to a movie, we're coming over, we'll see what we can do. And over the next few hours, it was a real back and forth with my sister about, hey, can we, can you just get in the car? Can we just get you in the car? And finally she ran out of vodka, got her in the car, went and got vodka, and then got out to the treatment center where she wouldn't get out of the car. And that was another hour of getting her peeled out of there, right? Like, everything we leave has claw marks on it, as we discussed, right? And she was the daughter from my dad's first marriage, and she did have some of that trauma and baggage, and significant stuff in life that I think led her to drink. I think, we come from an alcoholic family, so that's not what caused our alcoholism. But if you're looking for a reason, that's as good as any, I think. And so she had some real questions about why dad wasn't there with her growing up and things like that. And so over the course of those 30 days while she was inpatient, she got it. The lights came on. She was the treatment superstar, had all the answers. And most importantly, my dad was there every weekend, and they were having those discussions, having those talks, and he was able to be a father for her in that moment, which was a beautiful thing. And she got out of treatment and started living in their halfway house, and she was doing great for a couple of weeks, and then oops, she had a slip. That's okay. Brush yourself off, get back on the horse. And then a couple more weeks later, oops, she had another slip, and now you can't stay here anymore. So she moved back to Nashville. And that kicked off of, about 2 years of kind of this in and out, the dance that we do. Right. And I remember she kind of stopped talking to me, not out of anger or spite or anything, just, stopped calling and wouldn't hit me back when I called her. And I did finally catch her at a family birthday party in the middle of the day. And she was hammered, as we are. And I just remember her saying, I see how AA works for you, and I'm afraid that it won't work for me that way. And I don't know if that's the constitutionally incapable of being honest with ourselves. I don't know what it is that makes all of us so lucky to be in a meeting on a Saturday night, right? These are prime drinking hours, prime bar time right now. And for whatever reason, we're here. And so many of us are out there. And so anyway, she said, I don't know, but no, there's no reason to pick me up for the meeting. I'll be fine, basically. And over the next, series of months, she started to take on water as her liver was shutting down. And, at about my age now, she died, of alcoholism. Right. And that's what's waiting for us. That's what's either we drink ourselves to death, or we wrap ourselves around a telephone pole, like I could have done any time from 15 to 23 when I got sober. Many people are shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity. We have a great time, and we have great lives, and there's so much laughter in our lives, which is great. But underneath is that deadly earnestness where it's yeah, I get to live this life, because if I don't, the alternative is an alcoholic death, and that's what's waiting for us all. And it was depressing and kind of crushing, and we feel helpless, right? When we lose people in the program that we're close to and that we love, we can't help but feel hopeless. And what could I have done? What should I have done? Now I've been around long enough to lose some sponsees and a lot of close friends in the program. Those things are above our pay grade. There's nothing, I don't think I can get anybody sober, and I can't get anybody drunk. And I do remember that to me, the silver lining in that is my dad, who is my best friend, and he's 80 now and is in great shape and swims and works, and is literally is my best friend. That he doesn't have to go on to the hereafter, not knowing that he had done everything he could do for his daughter. That they had that extra 3 years or so where they were in each other's lives again, and they got to talk through all that stuff. And at the funeral, my sister had been in Chicago few years, but not long enough to really plant roots. And of course, how we do, there was a line of people out the back of the funeral home. And my mom, who's not an alcoholic, just says, Phillip, who are all these people? Where do they come from? It's Mom, this is Alcoholics Anonymous. This is it. This is what we do. We show up for each other. I love the saying that I've heard, which is you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up. So we show up for each other whenever we have an opportunity to. And and so sorry, I didn't mean to bring down the whole meeting here, but it's just those are the facts of life, right? If we stick around the program long enough, we're gonna lose people. And that just gives me so much more gratitude for those of us that stick around, and there's a ton of us that stick around and become, the most important people in each other's lives, I think, to a big extent, right? I didn't set out to ditch all my non-sober friends and end up with only sober friends, but it turns out you guys just get me better. Turns out that it's, I can talk to anybody about sports and about work and about those things. But when I really want to talk about what's important in life, about this spiritual journey that we're on, about trying to make progress in that, and just what that about this crazy God thing, whatever it is, I want to talk to you all about that, right? Because we're out there seeking it, and God's not making too hard terms for those of us that are seeking it. And that's such a beautiful thing. And I personally was kind of hung up on the God thing when I came into the rooms, as some of us are. I grew up in church, and I thought that I had checked it out, and that wasn't it. And I'm so grateful that AA is built the way that it is, right? That if we can express even a little bit of willingness, right? Like, I don't have to come in and say, okay, I believe in God and I'll do anything. It's like, no, am I even willing to believe if I'm shown some stuff? It's like AA is a very practical program for me. I pray and meditate every day, not because I'm a great person, right? It's because it works. It just, my life is better when I do the things that AA taught me to do. It's a very practical way to live and to be happy and healthy and whole. And the door to spirituality, to a spiritual life, AA just found a way to just blast it wide open for anybody that has a problem with alcohol. And I'm so grateful that it was built the way it is, that I came in expecting somebody to try to sell me on a particular notion of God, right? And I came in like, okay, if you want to stay sober, you got to have to find a power greater than yourself. It's going to be God. I was like, okay, what's that? And people just told me, oh, I don't know. You're gonna have to figure that out for yourself. I can't tell you. And that's, for me, that's when it flipped. I was like, oh, okay, well, what do you think it is? I thought you were going to try to sell me on something, and it's refreshing that you didn't, but that puts the burden on me to get out there and make a connection with this God thing. And I have a great relationship with whatever this thing is, I think, and have found it through some traditional channels and some non-traditional channels. And I always wanted to be a cool person walking a spiritual path, and I thought that monks were really cool, and Rastafari, anybody that had a deep spiritual connection, I thought was really cool. And then I get here, and it's like the craziest people in the world, right? I think we all come to AA thinking, no, nobody's going to understand me. I almost died like 10 times. And you get here and everybody's like, yeah, me too. I almost died, 10 times doing probably the same or crazier stuff than you did. And we're like, oh, these are our people, and it's just it's wild to me that and these are the people that will lead us on our spiritual journeys, that it's never the ones that we expect, man. And that what a fun plot twist that has been. And so again, I got a couple kids. I've got a wonderful wife who's got a great job and is super active in service. I stay super active in service. I always had some professional aspirations in life. But when I graduated from college 7 years later to get my 4-year degree, not complaining, I'm just saying, stick with it. It'll happen. Usually they call those people doctors, not in my case. But I got out of school and I just took the job that was in front of me, and I knew that it wasn't what I had always dreamed of doing. But it led me on a beautiful and wonderful career over the past 13 years. And then about 3 years ago, so really 16 years ago that I started that career, I was able to sell out of that business, and now I'm back on the path that I always wanted to be on, and it wasn't the just get sober and I just immediately snapped into the thing that I always thought I should do. It was just saying yes to the next right thing. And now I'm in a position to do things in my professional life that I don't think would have been possible before. Right. And so I feel strongly that God still put me, it knows what our heart, is in our hearts to do. And sometimes it might not be on my time frame, but it'll happen. And time is a really funny thing. I just tried something new over and over for, repeatedly in succession, just like sobriety. And all of a sudden I've got a completely different life now. I've got a completely different life sober, and I've got a different life professionally. And I'm a dad, and that's the greatest thrill of all, and all of these new experiences, were unattainable to me when I was drinking. I didn't have access to any of these lives, and I didn't have access to the power that would help me get to that, and that power is God as we understand it, and like the most important thing, right, is like, if you don't have a big book, get a big book, because I can talk all day and it doesn't matter. Like what's in the book, working the steps with a sponsor, having a spiritual experience as a result of the steps, that's the deal. That's the only thing that really matters in these rooms, and all the extra stuff is fantastic. And I'm grateful for that too. But if you hear nothing else, get a sponsor, work the steps of the program and get out there and carry the message. So thanks for having me. Thanks, Phil C. and Kingsport. It's been a blast. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Philip.